On today's Law Unfiltered podcast, we have Peter Hunt, partner at McCabes in their insurance division. Peter, thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
No, pleasure as always. Look, as we mentioned earlier prior to starting the podcast, it's all about inspiring young lawyers and those in the profession coming through the ranks about the journey in law. If you could give us a little intro into how you came about to becoming a partner in McCabes and the journey to getting there, and we can go from there.
I thought I'd start with a funny story about how I actually decided to study law. I had very little idea where my life would take me post high school. My father proposed different ideas to me. I think it was architect was in there and town planner and all kinds of weird things. And then one day on a trip back from America in Hawaii at like 2 a.m, he said, how about law? And suddenly this bell rang in my head. And I thought, that's a great idea. So that's where the journey started. In terms of actually becoming a partner, I'll go back to the start. I've got an interesting history in that I've never worked in-house or for the government, but I've done probably everything within private practice. Because I started in a sole practitioner office in Windsor, northwest of Sydney, where it was just me, the partner, and a conveyancer. I was there for 2.5 years. Then we did everything. So whatever came through the door, we were experts in that field of law. Tax, family law, personal injury, whatever, minor criminal cases, we were experts in everything. Then I moved into specialising in personal injury, initially on the plaintiff side, and at a firm called Champion & Partners in Parramatta. And I was there for just over a year. And then I moved into the city at last, and switched sides from the plaintiff side to the defendant side in motor vehicle accident work. So acting for CTP insurers, defending insurance claims. I was at a firm called Ferguson Holtz, and after that I was at a firm called Bruce & Stewart. So these are all specialist insurance firms. Then in around 2000, just after the Olympics, Bruce & Stewart merged with Blake Dawson Wardren, so now Ashurst. And I was there for, I think, just over 3 years. And finally I was headhunted to join a firm called Kerwoods in 2004. And Kerwoods merged with McCabes in 2018. And essentially I've been in the same firm for 20 years. I was going through a number of iterations, Kerwood Lawyers, McCabe, Kerwood, and now McCabes. But it's essentially the same, from my point of view, the same firm. So what I was trying to describe is I've been in a sole practitioner office, I've been in a suburban legal firm, I've been in a number of mid-tier firms, I've been in a number of specialist insurance firms, I've been in a top-tier firm with Blake's, and now back to a mid-tier firm with McCabes. And I gradually started moving from the country to the suburbs into the city. So it's an interesting journey.
No, brilliant. And I think obviously from that journey, what we can see is obviously the tenure you've spent from Kerwoods and McCabes being the same sort of firm or merging. A lot of young lawyers that I speak to on a daily basis as a recruiter, and what I'm seeing from careers up to senior associate sort of in the market at the moment is tenure. People don't seem to stick at a role for more than a couple of years at the moment. Whatever reasons they have, everyone has a different reason. We hear all sorts of things when people want to make a move. What is your secret to tenure? Obviously, over 20 years at that same sort of practice.
That's an interesting question. The result of my own personal satisfaction in the role. So what I left out of that story before was I started as a senior associate at Kerwoods. I had some client success, so that I was made a partner within a couple of years, and I was given responsibility and purpose and all the things which make a job worth getting up out of bed and going to the office for. And I had that fairly early, and it's been continuous since. So it hasn't been a hard decision for me to stay in one place for 20 years. I suppose the flip side of that lesson is for managers and employers is to get their staff purpose and in their role, so they are also satisfied in their position and want to stay with the firm.
Yeah, I think obviously that's a big thing at the moment that everyone's talking about is things like work-life balance, purpose, the managers who are looking after the junior solicitors and those coming up the ranks, some of these leaders don't have those leadership skills, but they're thrust into leadership positions. And a lot of people that I speak to, those are the top three things would be like the work-life balance. The manager or the partner they report into hasn't got that leadership skill or wasn't taught that. And obviously the purpose, the firm, the role, where is their progression? Is there none? They can't see that career path. With McCabes especially, obviously you've been there. Is there anything, you can advise those partners or senior associates, special counsels who are leading these junior lawyers to give them that purpose to staying within those roles?
Yes, I think it's a matter of ensuring everyone in the team knows, A, that they're part of the team and they're a cog in a wheel. I don't mean that in a negative sense, but they're in a wheel which is creating a service to the client, and they have a particular role in that process. So ensuring that they know what their role is within the team, and also giving them a sense of, if I do my job well, here's the outcome down the track. I'll be paid more, I'll be promoted, I'll be given more responsibility, I'll have more client contact, I'll be able to do fun things like record podcasts, and the like. So making sure that the team knows where each of them fits within the scheme of things.
Yeah, I think that is really important for anyone coming through any rank. The other big thing, like I mentioned, is that work-life balance. Obviously, law, very traditional, very hierarchical in some firms as well. But then everyone's been there, like a lot of people I speak to, especially in certain areas of law where, because the senior associates, the partners, special counsels, they've had to go through that same journey of those hours and that work, the grind to get to where they are. A lot of them sometimes say to me, why should the junior coming through have it any easier? I've had to do it, so why should they have it easier? And then there's a lot of firms wouldn't change that hybrid work because they said we were 5 days, so should everyone else be. But obviously the world's changing and the way of working is changing. Anything that you could add on that in terms of to help these young lawyers understand, the work-life balance, but burnout, but all these things necessary to progress?
Yeah, I think I'd move with the times. In terms of hybrid working, it's here to stay. I don't think there's any way we're going to turn back time to pre-COVID where we all get up in the morning and all slog our way into work from 9 to 5, then go home again. Equally, I don't think you can necessarily work from home all the time. There's got to be some compromise between what the employee wants and what the business needs. And so striking that balance, which is the hard part. And I'm laughing because obviously every business is facing this problem in the post-COVID world. But in terms of work-life balance, I think we have to be very realistic too. If you want to get ahead, you do have to work the extra hours. I'm not going to say because I did it, everyone has to do it, the way you said a moment ago. But I certainly put in extra hours when I was going through the ranks in the evening or on the weekend, whatever it might be, in order to make my mark and move forward. And I don't think we should sugarcoat and say that's not something you need to do. On the other hand, employees can certainly set boundaries about what they're prepared to do. There's the right to disconnect these days, which is obviously very important. Just a quick segue. I remember back in the late 80s, early 90s, I got a very clear memory of my father coming home one day at 7:30 p.m. and his boss, the phone ringing, him answering it, it was his boss. And him answering, no, I'm home now, I'll do it in the morning, and putting the phone down. Whereas, of course, nowadays, you're getting emails all through the evening. Sometimes even clients will email you at 2 a.m. Because they're up for whatever reason. That's the time which works for them. Or a colleague might do the same. Weekends, it just never stops.
Never stops, yeah.
So I rambled a bit there, but I guess the lesson for workers or employees is to set their own boundaries for what works for them. Put in extra time when you need to, but obviously carve out time during the week for family, friends, hobbies, and the like.
Yeah, look, I think a big thing that we're learning in the change now is something that a lot of people are trying to push for is that flexible hours as well. Where, some people are more productive in the morning, some are more productive late at night, some have responsibilities, personal responsibilities that they might have to do at 4 o'clock in the afternoon or and so on. Because obviously a big thing now that we as a firm are also trying to push is gender equality in law, for example. And that, having a family, children, etc. shouldn't be a setback. It's actually a positive it adds a lot, to the individual as well in terms of responsibilities and so on. So that flexible working is something that we're seeing in firms as well, law firms. Do you think it's something that can work in law realistically?
Yeah, I think it can. And in fact, I see it all the time.
Yeah.
Obviously, if someone has a court hearing, then there's 6 hours.
Of course. Yeah.
And they have to be there when the court's open.
Yeah.
But other than that, I see no reason why there can't be flexibility on both sides, where the business gets its needs met and the employee gets to balance both their work demands and their outside work demands at the same time. And I've never wanted to work in a firm where I'm standing by the lift at 5 p.m. saying you can't go home.
Yeah.
Or ensuring that people are working at their desks at particular times of the day. I think trust is an enormously important part of this discussion, where if you trust your employees to get the work done in their time, that's all that really matters. And I don't want people asking for permission to go and take their child to the doctor or their dog to the vet or go to the school sports event, which might be during normal work hours, provided they get the job done. From my point of view, that's all that matters.
Yeah, no, 100% I agree. Look, I think over COVID, we realized the importance of family time, spending time with loved ones, things that we took for granted when we go to work 9 to 5 or 7 till 7, whatever the hours we do. We've now appreciated the smaller things a bit more, going for a walk or whatever it might be. Look, flexible work I think is here to stay. Firms that don't adapt are losing talent. We're seeing that all the time. One of the biggest questions I get asked as a recruiter by any lawyer I speak to, the first question is, do they give you flexible work? Is there a hybrid structure? If the answer is no, no matter how great the firm is and the partnership that they would work with, they turn it down, even though they know it's a great career move, because it's become so important. The other thing is burnout. Obviously, law is famous for burnout. We see that a lot. Investment banking, law, and medicine is one of the main things that we hear about as burnout in professions. Is there something you've seen in a change through your journey, in the last 20 years, just even at McCabes or so on, that burnout's becoming less of a thing?
No, I think burnout's still definitely a thing because of the high demands of the job. And as we just discussed, it's very easy to be sucked down into the rabbit hole of just answering every email as soon as it comes in, which means you never switch off. So I guess that's the key, is to have a structure in your day or your week where you have periods where you can switch off from work. Whether you mentioned going for a walk, I think that's one I'd certainly take advantage of. And put on the headphones and listen to some music or a podcast as you're working. Walking, I should say. And obviously it's up to the individual how they choose to switch off. But the key is having some structure where this is my time and I don't want to think about my job during these hours. And use the other side of the brain, do some exercise, whatever it might be.
And obviously, you've been in law a long time. Our listenership, a lot of them are either aspiring lawyers or just graduated or just coming early stages of their career. Like you said, you've done multiple different practice areas and then landed on one that you truly love. One of the biggest challenges a lot of young lawyers we talk to, they don't know, or they don't even know how to choose the area of practice that they want to stay in and stick in to keep on climbing the ladder in that area and becoming a specialist. Any advice you can give to those, and how did you land on MVA being your choice of practice?
So I'm really laughing because I sort of stumbled into MVA as being my specialty, and people who have seen me in this area of law for many years may be surprised to hear that, because I've got a fairly good profile in the area of law. But I really stumbled into it. As I said, I started out doing everything at this general practice in Windsor, and I had some MVA cases, and I think one of the reasons I ended up specialising in it because I understood it, whereas I didn't understand some of the other things I was doing. It actually came down to a point where I had a choice between, I had two offers, one for a personal injury role, the one I took in Parramatta, or I could have gone down the family law path at another suburban firm, and I think I just took the path which was probably going to be least emotionally difficult, because family law,
of course,
is not an easy path to take. So to answer the question, it wasn't some master plan to become a specialist in CTP and create a profile in that arena. I wouldn't say it's an accident, but I was close to it. I suppose the lesson is, if you're a junior lawyer and you don't know which area of law to make your mark in, try a few things first. Most firms have a rotation program, and if they don't, you can always ask to dabble in other areas of practice, until you find the one which works for you.
Look, I think that's great advice, because we live in a world right now where everything seems to be planned. Even just meeting your mates, you got to plan 3 weeks in advance.
That's right.
You know, no one's just free. When I was growing up, you could just pop in and go see someone without even calling them that you're coming. Kind of vibe. Especially growing up in Africa. But nowadays, even just to see a friend, it's like, let's plan something in 4 weeks from now. Everyone seems to have a plan for everything. So I think that's really great advice. Is go and try it. Go and try a few areas and see where you land. Obviously, staying on that note, to survive in law as long as you have, obviously, is special. A lot of other people, seem to go into law when it gets to that senior associate level. I've spoken to a couple of candidates who decide to get out of law and try something else, or is law for them, and they start questioning these things and the role and the work-life balance and all these things. What advice would you give someone, or what have you learned in able to stay within this profession for as long as you have?
I think I stayed in this area of law and law generally for as long as I have, just because I've enjoyed some success both with clients and with colleagues. So I never really considered doing anything else, because I know I've got a good reputation and a profile in what I do, so I get satisfaction out of that. And for that reason, I've never really considered leaving the law. So it's a hard question to answer in terms of how others should approach longevity. It's something which either comes naturally or it doesn't, depending on the level of satisfaction somebody has in the job they're doing.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, if you are satisfied in what you're doing, then definitely stick in it. The one thing that really caught my eye as well is you also do your own podcast. You do a lot of other things you don't see many partners getting involved in, right? How important do you feel, it doesn't have to be of importance per se, but doing these extracurricular activities in terms of podcasts and sharing your knowledge and having these conversations, how much value do you think they've added to your journey thus far?
I get enormous satisfaction out of that. And it's not a random thing where I'm necessarily doing extracurricular activity. A lot of it is pure marketing.
Yeah, brilliant.
To ensure I get the message out that I'm a thought leader and an expert in my field, which is the reason for the Proper Lookout podcast, which is what you mentioned, plus a weekly mini podcast called the PIC Decision of the Week.
Yes.
PIC stands for the Personal Injury Commission, for those who don't know, and we release those every Monday. So that is actually pure marketing. There's other things I do just for my own enjoyment. I have a theatre blog, which some people may have seen on LinkedIn. I figured if I'm going to go to the theatre and if I enjoy writing, which I do, I might as well combine those things and have a theatre blog. The most recent one, by the way, was on Chicago, the musical.
Yes.
If you, for those of you into musicals, it's a good one to see. And that's part of just the satisfaction I talked about earlier, is doing things you enjoy doing, because then they don't become a job.
Yeah, 100%. And I think you touched on a really important thing that a lot of lawyers don't do, is market themselves. Build that personal brand, become thought leaders in your space. I mean, I speak to a lot of lawyers who don't even go on LinkedIn. They have like 20 connections because they don't think it's not part of their job. But then I say, hey, imagine if you did and put out thought leadership content. How more attractive to firms would you be? These junior lawyers coming through. So how important have you seen a change in that with that marketing that you do, like in your work?
Yeah, there's two answers to that. One is, I'll start with for me, then I'll move on to how to benefit for junior lawyers. But when I first started promoting the firm and myself on LinkedIn, and I'm very deliberate in putting it in that order, the firm first, then me and my team. People said to me, all you're doing is promoting yourself to other lawyers. And I disagree, because a lot of my clients are on LinkedIn. And as it turned out, we landed a major client as a direct consequence of the podcast series, which was promoted on LinkedIn. So if you're a senior lawyer or even a partner, there's still a benefit in promoting on a platform like LinkedIn, because it's not just colleagues, it's also clients. From a junior lawyer perspective, it's all about profile building. And you're right, if you have connections and you put out content, most of it's serious. It doesn't have to be all serious, but most of it has to be. Then it's a way for a junior lawyer or in any profession to build their profile, and you never know who's listening.
Exactly.
And you never know who's going to offer you an opportunity because they've come across your name and your profile.
Yeah. No, look, it's so true. What we've seen with our podcast has been incredible,
Yeah.
Any last thoughts, before we end the podcast? Any advice you'd like to give anyone listening to the show?
Yeah, one thing I hear a lot about is imposter syndrome, and I think it's hugely prevalent. And I'm candid enough to say that I, even now, have a degree of imposter syndrome. I certainly did when I first started. The idea of standing in front of an audience and trying to explain some legal concept to them used to fill me with horror.
Yeah.
What I wish I'd known is that everyone feels that way.
Yeah.
Other than a select few who actually just love it.
Yeah.
And there's a few people I can think of in that category. But most people are daunted by the idea of the spotlight. And I reckon it would have been easier had I known that. So my message is to all junior professionals who feel like they're suffering from imposter syndrome, that it's not just you. A lot of people feel the same way. And once you know that, I think it's liberating. The other thing I'd say about imposter syndrome is it's okay to give into it once in a while. I can think of many times where I've taken a step back when I should have taken a step forward. The important thing is to overcome it enough times to move forward and to make your mark in whichever profession you're working in. So to beat down that self-doubt and the feeling that you don't belong in the room. If you do it enough times, you'll move forward.
Yeah, I agree. No, for sure. Look, I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming on the podcast. And where can people reach out to you? Happy for them to reach out to you on LinkedIn? Any listeners wanted advice or just connect with you?
So on LinkedIn, it's just Peter Hunt,
Yep.
McCabes. You'll find me easily. Or my email address is peter.hunt@mccabes.com.au.
Oh, brilliant. Perfect. Thanks, Priya. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Jesse. It's been a pleasure too.